You need to understand databases. Even if you're not a developer, even if you don't consider yourself all that technical, you need to understand databases because I don't know if you've heard this news, but we are all software developers now. At least if you want to be, there's nothing to stop you from creating the perfect replacement for that expensive SaaS tool you spend $79 per month per user on, and it frustrates you. It doesn't have the buttons where you want them. It's missing the feature that you need. So why not just create your own tool? Well, in order to do that, we still need to understand the fundamentals of how software works. Most people understand this view. This is the front end. This is for us normies, non-developers, traditionally speaking. We can click around on stuff and generally get the job done. So this is a portal here. I can see some clients, what projects are in progress, maybe access the contacts, do everything I need to function on a day-to-day basis without having to be the slightest bit technical. Now, if you've ever used a visual page builder to make a website for your business, you've designed the front end inside of that. And here is what this looks like I'm using a tool called Softr, also the sponsor of today's video. It's softr.io. I'll have a link in the description. Just click on that and you can get started with their free plan and follow along with me if you want to build your own application. But what we're looking at here is the front end builder in Softr. They call it the interface here, and I can click on things and redesign how it looks. But the important part is the back end, the database. And you'll often hear those terms when you hear people talk about software, the front end and the back end. Really, they're talking about the visual interface as the front end, and then the back end is the database. And that's where we're going to focus today in this video. We're really going to do a deep dive into databases to understand how they work and how they actually make the front end function. So this is one of the templates that comes with Softr. They give you a ton of different templates so that if you want to create your own application, you can use their templates as a launch pad if you want. If you like to start from scratch, you can do that as well. But here we've got some data populated so we can really start to understand the different components of a database. We're going to start at the top level and just get more granular as we go. The first thing you'll probably notice is visually, it looks a lot like a spreadsheet. And if that helps you, if the word database just feels confusing, just think of it as a spreadsheet because that's really how it functions. There's just some more advanced features that I'll show you that really aren't that tricky. So what we're looking at here is called a table. And this is the users table. So we can see all of the people who can use this tool, right? So if it was your website, it would be the people who can log into WordPress to create a post. That would be a users table in that application. All software works this way. If you want to have users, you'll need to have a database connected that has a list of the users that are allowed to use the tool. And you can see here, there's a ton of other tables. We've got companies. Now remember that this is a client portal template that we're looking at. So we've got a list of companies that are our clients, right? And then some fields that tell us information about those clients. So we've got the name, the industry, the size of the company, and then their contact information, as well as current projects. And we'll get into some more specifics here because there's really a lot of interesting things that we can learn about. But so far, all we really need to know is that we've got different tables. And then inside of those tables, we have what are called fields. And those are basically like the column headers. And we can add as many fields to each table as we want. Now, each individual item, so like in the case of our users table, we have all of these fields, but each individual item is called a record. So 3 vocabulary words right out of the gates. We really have to learn these because it's the most technical part of this. If you want to converse with someone or even talk to AI about editing a database, these are the phrases that you'll come across: tables, fields, and then records. So to understand this further, let's go to the front end and we can start to connect the dots between what a database does and how we see things as users on the front end. So let's get oriented. I'm currently logged in as an employee named Sophia Martinez. And as Sophia, if she were using this client portal, she could click on projects and see a list of the projects she was involved in. This is important because I don't want Sophia to see a list of all projects in the company. I only want her to see what she's currently working on. So what does this look like inside of the database? Well, if we start off in the table for users here, I can see the record for Sophia and also note that she is an employee. That's her role. We can have permissions for each role. We'll dive into that a little bit later on. But if we scroll over, we can also see which projects she is a member of, which include only the local market expansion. Which, checking our front end, that checks out. She's a member of the local market expansion. Now, if I wanted to assign Sophia to an additional project, I could edit the database directly. Now, you almost never do this in practice. We set up forms and automations and other front-end practices so that as users, we don't actually have to look at this spreadsheet type of view. It's not very user-friendly, and if you make a mistake, it could screw up your entire application. But for the sake of education, let's just add Sophia to another project here by simply typing it in. Now with Softr, it's really great because if I double click into a cell here, I can see all of the projects that are available to me in my database. So I'll add her to this website redesign as well. Now, without even pressing anything, it automatically refreshed and added in the website redesign to her projects. Now she can click into this and get more information about what needs to be done inside of this project. But something deeper actually just happened there because the projects themselves, remember, I double clicked here and I saw a list of the projects. How does Softr know and how could you set this up so that there's a relationship between users and projects? Because if I click over to the projects here, you can see I've got a list of 3 different projects in this application, and I could add additional ones right here. Like I said, we don't typically edit the database directly unless we're trying to troubleshoot something, but you could if you wanted to. So what's going on? How does the projects table have a relationship with the users table? Well, that's because we have a special kind of field. Remember fields? They're just the columns inside of our table here, and we can add in additional fields at any time. If I scroll all the way to the end of my table, I'll see this add field button. But anywhere in the table, I can go to the header row and just right click and then choose insert field either to the left or to the right. For now, I'm just gonna go to the very end of the table and choose add field, and I get a list of different types of fields that are available to me. Most of these fields are pretty self-explanatory, like short text, long text, files, dates, numbers, currency. If you've ever used a spreadsheet application or even built a form with a visual form builder, this is gonna kind of just make sense right out of the gates. But there's a different type of field that we need to know about, and those are called relationship fields. Softr actually makes this very easy to work with by just adding in simple icons to let your brain know what type of field you're working with. So a related record is what we were looking at when we connected up the projects to the users. Let's add another one in here. Now on the next screen, we've got some information we need to fill in here. The field name, there's even a disclosure triangle if you want to add in a little bit more information as a description. This will show up as a tooltip inside of the header of the field. So you can just hover over something to get information about what it actually represents. And then we've got our field type. Now this is what we set on the previous screen. It just gives you one more chance to change your mind if you like. You can see all of the options show up here. And then finally, we've got the related table, which is connecting up this table, the users table, with one of our other existing tables. So let's just reproduce the exact same field that we had before in terms of having the user connected up to specific projects. So I'll call this project demo and I'll just demonstrate a tooltip. And then for our related table, of course, we will choose projects, which is right here. After we choose our related table, we get some additional options like the ability to link multiple records. Now in this scenario, since we're trying to replicate an existing field, we want this on, right? Because users can be a part of multiple projects. That's no problem. But in your circumstance, you might not need that. So you could just turn it off. And there's some additional options down here for more advanced filtering if you need to get very specific about the records that are available inside of this table. For now, we are good to go. I'm gonna go ahead and hit save. Now on the next screen, they ask you if you'd like to add some lookup fields. This is another technical sounding name, but it doesn't really have to be that complicated. Basically, they're saying, hey, do you want to pull in any of the other information from the table? We'll create some more fields for you here. We're gonna skip this for now. It's not necessary for what we're doing as we're just getting the basics. So I'll close this out. Now I've got my new field here, but it's completely blank. So let's go ahead and assign some users to some projects in this field. Now remember that Sophia was a member of the local market expansion and the website redesign. Well, in my new version of reality in this project demo field, I am only going to assign her to the refresh branding identity. All right, great. That's all set up. Now notice that I'm not clicking save anywhere. That's because as I make changes to the database, it saves automatically, which is great because then you won't forget to press save, but it also raises another opportunity for me to give you a warning that changes you make in the database are going to appear on your application immediately. So generally, just don't edit the database as I'm doing here. This is for educational purposes only. I mean, quite honestly, after you get your application set up, you never really need to look at the database on a regular basis. We're just doing this so we can understand how a tool is actually structured. Oh, by the way, here is what that tooltip looks like, so you can have some helpful info to you. But what I'm going to do next is actually head over to the interface editor, and I'm going to swap out the old field, which was called project member of, and I'm going to replace it with my brand new field, the project demo. I could probably move these to be closer to each other. That way I'm not scrolling all over. With Softr, it's super easy. Just click and drag and you can get it to go exactly where you want. All right, so here we go. We've got project member of and project demo. I'm gonna head over to the interface, and what I wanna do is go over to my pages, and I can find the right screen. We're gonna go under projects here. So this is the project screen where I can build visually what the application is going to look like. At first glance, if you've never used Softr before, this might be kind of confusing because, well, the same thing is showing up twice. Is it a bug? What's going on? No, actually, they're displaying different sections to different users. So if I hover over this lock icon, it says this is visible to clients and employees versus the bottom one, which is visible to all administrators. So different permissions for different users. Now we're going to make changes to the top section here because remember, Sophia is an employee, so that's the correct one. With this block selected so that it's lit up blue, that's what it's called in Softr, by the way, a block. With this selected on the right-hand column here, I'm going to scroll down until I see the conditional filters. These are filters that are set by certain conditions, just like the name says. So we are only going to show Sophia projects that she is a member of or that she has a client contact of. So to change this, remember, I'm going to do a little swaparoo here. I'm going to remove project member of, just click the X, and now it's gone. And I can click in this field, choose logged in user because you have to be logged in to see this. And it will be, instead of project member of, I'll just choose my project demo field. And now that's done, I have connected the back end up to the front end. This is something that would take a developer so much time and training to learn to connect up. We're talking hours and hours of coding and experience courses, fees, learning how to do that. And now with a few mouse clicks, it's all set up. And we can test this to be sure. So in my preview mode, I'm back as Sophia, and sure enough, her projects have updated to only include the refreshing brand identity. She's no longer a part of the other two projects. All right, let's recap everything we've learned so far because the next step is to add in AI. And I want to make sure that the vocabulary words are perfectly clear because if you've been following along with the video thus far, you now know everything you need to interact with AI or even other developers to have an intelligent conversation about a database. So what is a database? It's essentially just a way that we organize the data for our application. The way the organization is structured is into something called tables. These are specific bits of information, different types of information that our application needs. So in the case of this client portal, we have the users who can log in. We have the companies who are our clients. What projects are we working on for them? So on and so forth. Each one of those gets its own table. Inside of the table, we have fields at the top. So that's the next more granular look at the data, is what types of data is contained inside of that table. Projects include project names, descriptions of the projects, the status that it's in, so on and so forth. Then The actual specific information is called a record. So the project name is Refreshing Brand Identity. The description is this project focuses on rebranding. You get the idea. Now, we need to actually implement AI to speed up our life, stay ahead of the curve with technology, and just generally make things better. Luckily, with Softr, there's a lot of ways to integrate AI into your workflow. I'm going to show you a few of my favorite ones right now, but there's certainly more in the works, as well as you might see some icons around here I've not clicked on, but those are coming up in later videos. So definitely get subscribed to this channel if you want to know more about some really exciting things coming to Softr soon. Okay, I'm going to start off by showing you the AI agent. This is the most complex way to add AI into Softr databases, but it's also the way to get the most benefit. I've got a dedicated video to AI agents in Softr databases, so if you really want to deep dive into this topic, I will link to my entire catalog of Softr content down below via a playlist. So just look for the one on AI agents. So here's just a quick example of how you could use an AI agent inside of the projects table. So we've got these long descriptions. Maybe I want to have a shorter version of what's actually included in each project. I'll just call this the TLDR, which hopefully you're not treating your clients this way. It's just an example. All right, so here we go. The prompt that I'm going to give it is to read the project description and then give me a bulleted list of the deliverables from that project. So I'm just typing read the, and then I'll use the @ symbol, or I could click down here where you can see there's an icon for it. And I'll say read the description and provide a bulleted list of the deliverables or what would make the project a success. All right. There we go. And now I can choose the model that I want to use. I'm going to go with, let's do Claude Sonnet 4.6. And then there's some other options like, do I want to allow web search? For this instance, no, I definitely don't want it researching anything on the web, but I could run this at a particular time, like after the record has been updated. So I could have a form on the front end of my website to fill out. I could ask the client, hey, what is the project description? What exactly are we working on here? They could add that in, and then the AI runs automatically, giving me a bulleted list of what would be a success based on that client submission. But you can see here my options are to run this when it's triggered manually, meaning that I could go into the backend and just say, hey, update this. I could do it when a new record is created or when an existing record is updated. So in this case, it really makes sense to have both of these on. But right now, I'm just going to tie it to the description field. Okay, everything else looks good. I'm going to hit save here. And now you can see I've got my new field here. It's got an AI style icon next to the title TLDR. Let's go ahead and run this. I'll hit the little play button here to fill it with AI. Okay, now the AI is done working and I can view the output. Now, obviously the cell is really small here, so I can't read it, but if I hover over it, I can expand the cell to view it inside of this little modal pop-up. Keep in mind that we're not going to look at the data this way. We're going to put it on the front end of our website, which we can do really quickly in just a moment. But let's see what the AI came up with. The TLDR is that we're looking for a fresh, modern logo design that reflects sustainable practices, a website overhaul that aligns with the new brand identity, so on and so forth. This for me is a lot easier to look at rather than reading an entire project description. This way I can see the bulleted list and maybe I want to say, hey, what is left in this project? Did we check all of these boxes? Is everything updated in our tasks? Do we have the appropriate tasks to fulfill the project description? Because yeah, that's right. Tasks is a table inside of our database. You're starting to really get how this works, right? It's not that hard. So the way I would bring in my information to the front end of the application is, again, going to pages, then we need to find the right page. In this case, it's going to be the project details. And here is the project details block. If I go over to content, I'm just going to add in my TLDR here. Scroll down to the bottom, toggle this on. I'm actually going to move this above the description. I think that's going to make more sense. And then we're good to go. Now notice this one isn't populated because we only generated the description for one of the projects. If we set this up on our website, of course, that would be automated. And every time one was added in, it would be generated. The TLDR we made was for the refreshing brand identity. So let's check that out on the front end. This time I'm logged in as Olivia. She's an administrator, so she'll be able to see all of the projects. So we'll head over to projects here. Here is our brand identity. And now I've got my bulleted list of a summary of what the project actually needs to accomplish. Now, it could go so much deeper than this as well. You could have it generate draft response of form fills so that your sales team can respond more quickly and more efficiently. There's really no shortage of things we could do with the AI agents. So definitely go check out that full video if this part has you curious. The AI agents field is not the only way to use AI inside of Softr databases. It's actually kind of sprinkled all over just to make life a lot easier. Like, for example, I don't like making formulas in spreadsheets, so luckily I don't have to. Inside of the projects table here, I've got some information about the invoices. I can see the total amount billed for each company. Now, there are multiple invoices for each company, sometimes 4, sometimes 2. But what I really want to know is how much did we charge on average per project? So I'm going to add in a new field here right next to the total amount billed, and I'll insert it to the right. This is going to be a formula. And now, rather than having to write something super complex, I can just have AI do it for me. See here it says, help me write a formula. Cool. Calculate the average price per project. So divide the total amount billed by the number of invoices received. All right, just plain English prompt there. Probably could have said it a little bit nicer. Hit generate with AI, and there we go. It does everything I need for the formula, and I have my total right here. Now, I didn't give this field a name, so I can always go back into a field and edit it and say average project price. This looks good, but it's not formatted correctly. So what I'm going to do is edit this one more time and then go to the formatting and just change this from a number to a currency and hit save. And now I know my average price. AI took care of it for me. I didn't have to do any thinking about any formula at all. And the AI integration extends to the front end as well. So for example, if I'm looking at my invoices page on the app, I can very easily add in a field to be able to chat with AI about this for my users on the front end. So I've got the invoices block here selected. This is for administrators, so it will show up only for administrators when logged in. And then under actions, I've got this new try ask AI. I'm just gonna hit try it and enable it. And that just adds a top bar button here. If I wanted to add this manually, like that call to action is gone when you see this video, just go to add top bar button and Ask AI will be one of them. But what this has done is add this little Ask AI button where if I preview this page, and now I can go ahead and choose Ask AI. And now as a regular user, never having to see the database at all, I can query it using AI and have it explain things to me in simple terms, like what is the total amount of money received across all companies so far? There we go, $23,130. So if you're interested in getting started building out your own application with Softr, I just thought I'd go through the pricing here with you quickly. So they have a super generous free plan for $0 forever. You can start building your application, see if it's going to work. You don't have to make any commitments upfront. And if you're just using it for yourself, I mean, you could probably just run it for free forever. If you want to start using it with other people, or you just grow to have a larger database, then you're going to need to upgrade to a paid plan. In fact, that's what I want to focus on right now is how many records you need in your database is generally what's going to dictate the pricing. And that's not unique to Softr. That's kind of an industry-wide thing. So with their free plan, they're super generous. They give you 5,000 records. And if you go up to their $49 a month plan, you get 50,000 records. And then they 10x that when you go up to the pro plan, giving you 500,000 records. If you just compare this to another similar product, here's Airtable. We can close out their cookie preferences. On their free plan, they're only going to give you 1,000 records. And then if you pay $20 a month per user, keep in mind the prices I showed you in Softr were not per user, you're going to get 50,000 records per base. So that'd be like a database, right? So only 50,000 there. And if you're having multiple users, it's really going to add up in cost very quickly. Versus with Softr, the number of users you get is really generous. So you get 20 users for $49 a month. That's not $49 times 20. That's just $49. You go up to the 139 and now you've got 100 users. And so, yeah, you can do the math yourself there. It's a much more efficient way to run your business. And I really do love the templates that Softr provides. It's just a great way to get started with this if you've never had to build out a database from scratch. It's one of those things that's monumental in its undertaking because it's so foundational to your business that if you get it wrong from the beginning, you're always kind of fighting against this bad organization system of your data. So Doing this with well-built, thought-out templates from accomplished developers. I know we don't need developers anymore, but it's good that they left some remnants of their historical past that we can utilize for our templates. I'm kidding, of course, don't roast me in the comments. But yeah, everything's here. So if you want to get started with any of these types of tools, it's very easy to get started with a database that's mostly there and then make the modifications that you need to actually start using it within your business. And one last thing, we'll just close with this. I want to just talk briefly about workflows. We have talked about apps, we've talked about databases, but the kind of missing puzzle piece is a workflow, and they've got some great templates for this. You can think of this as like your built-in automation platform. So if you wanted to scrape a URL, summarize with AI, and then save it to your database, they've got a template for that, right? So this will allow your sales team, it will allow your customers to have everything they need in one centralized location, and it can even be completely automated. Let's go ahead and just pull this open real quick. We won't spend a ton of time on workflows here, but I'll just show you some of the things it can do. So when a new record is added to your database, like someone signs up, well, then you can go get the information off of their website and summarize it so that your salespeople have a good idea of what this new client is all about. And it'll be saved in a record where when they go into the front end, they can see everything. You're probably getting the idea of how much power you could unlock with the combination of having your own custom application, your own way to store data inside of a Softr database, and then a built-in automation platform to tie everything together. And by the way, it's not just stuck within the own Softr ecosystem. You can send this out. There's integrations with a lot of third-party tools to pull in data from just about anywhere. All right, so that's going to do it. Hopefully you have found this video helpful. If you did, make sure you leave me a comment down below and let me know what was the most interesting part of it, or just hit the like button if that's too much effort. I totally get it. My name is Dave Swift, by the way. I've got a website, daveswift.com. You can go there and get signed up for my free email newsletter. It goes out every Tuesday morning, and get subscribed to this channel if you want more videos like this one. I'll be back again soon with another one.